Well, I was born in University Park, and I'm soon to be 86 years old, and I've lived on McFarland Boulevard substantially all my life. So my dad was mayor, and I grew up when he was mayor. I remember the 1945 election, which was really he took the position that we should not go into Dallas, and he was anti-annexation, and he was the kind of lead person in that campaign, and the vote was April the 3rd, 1945. He had been general counsel of Lone Star Gas Company, and then later he was basically head of the Dallas Bar Association, and they came to him and asked him about annexing Highland Park, University Park, and Preston Hollow, and he said, well, you ought to wait until you at least have an armistice because everybody's off at the war. And they said, no, we want to go right now. And the mayor of Dallas had really tried to push him, and he just teamed with a bunch of people from University Park. And of course, I was about 8 years old, and I saw he was a great debater, and I saw some debates I can remember in, I think, Cruth Park and maybe Curtis Park, where he opposed one of the citizens that wanted to go into Dallas. So I grew up around my dad, who was mayor then from after the election where they defeated the attempt to annex University Park. My mother was very, very sick during that period, and she died in '49. So I was 11, and I kind of grew up with my dad being mayor, and that every time they'd stop a car, you know, and I was in it, the police chief would say, hey, I'm going to tell your dad, and boy, before breakfast the next morning, if I was with somebody and in some kind of trouble, I'd hear about it before breakfast. Anyway, I grew up here, and I had great friends. Most of them were friends for life, or most of them now have passed on. And anyway, I was totally a University Park person, and when I say this, I believe it. University Park is the finest place anywhere to live and raise a family. And I've been all over the world. My wife and I have traveled many places, but there's nothing like University Park. You have the churches, you have the schools, you have SMU, now Presidential Library. You've got everything right here you want. Of course, most of it's in Dallas if it's shopping or eating in restaurants, but we have a very fine place to live, and I just took advantage of it all. I was here the whole time, you know. Well, it had already grown to about 20,000 people by 1940. That's what I remember, and by that annexation, it was probably 24,000 people. So by 1945, this was pretty much a complete city. Now, there was a lot of things that they changed after that. You'd kind of wonder why you'd vote the city mayor and the two commissioners had voted to go into Dallas, which after I've studied some of the background, obviously Preston Hollow didn't have the same governance that the town of Highland Park and the city of University Park, and that's police, sewer, water, garbage, fire, EMT. They didn't have it, so they went into Dallas, but we were pretty well organized, and the high school that I went to was just a wonderful place, or the Highland Park Independent School District was a wonderful school district. And so later when I was with the UIL, foundation board in Austin, everybody looked up to Highland Park as maybe the finest. Everybody wanted to be like Highland Park, and there was very few that could even come close to the reputation we had in our school district. And it was, a great place to graduate from. Played 3 sports there. I played football, baseball, golf. Had great teachers. I know them all, still know them all, know their names and what they tried to teach me. A great education I got. So that's what it is to live in University Park. Well, when I was mayor, which was 1976 to 1982, that's 3 terms. I think there were some things that we did that had a great impact. One was Mayor Germany told me that Greenway Parks wanted to sell the property that was across the Cotton Belt Railroad from where their subdivision was, and so I was able to purchase that and de-annex it from Dallas, get it annexed to University Park. Then we made a deal with the school district to provide the track facilities that we have there, and then we built a couple of tennis courts, and of course the restrooms we built. And then we sold another track to the water district, the Park Cities Municipal Utility District, and so for what we paid for it, we got all of our money back. I thought that was a very good deal. My 2 commissioners when I was mayor were much older than I was. I was probably 39 to 44. We had Fred Peak and Joel Williams as the commissioners, and these guys were very bright and very already established in the community. And Mr. Peak comes in one day and says, "Hey, how about us trading our where we dumped all of our garbage, which was on Lombardy Lane, but they had put I think I-35 out there, and it was getting more valuable, and so we traded that particular property that we'd filled from the inception of University Park for all this property behind the Dr. Pepper plant called the Warcola property. So all that property we have where all of our shops are, and where a lot of our administrative offices are as a result of that trade. And then I think probably one of the things that's very much recognized now as something that we did was we built the gazebo, and my dad had always kind of trumpeted in my mind that it's an awesome ability to be able to tax 100% of the people for what less than 100% won't. So when they always talked about that gazebo, there was a lady that had offered to give her house in Boca Estates for the library. Well, they weren't going to accept that in Boca Estates. That's their most prominent, probably, subdivision. So we took up the gazebo, and we had purchased basically Gore Park. And I had my law partner of mine, Pete Chantillis, who had been a commissioner at one point on the University Park Commission. He formed a 501c3, I guess, tax-exempt program where we basically had just people that wanted a gazebo gave their money and got a write-off, and so we didn't have to tax everybody and have a vote on it. And it was done with a city corporation that's now a 501c that we have. We'll probably use it in this coming centennial celebration too, to raise some money. Well, during that time, I came out of law school, went with my dad, and really had a great experience as a young lawyer. And I had written a letter to Dolph Briscoe, who became governor in 1972. I'd written him and said, if you ever run for governor again, give me a call. Well, in 1970, he calls me from Uvalde and says, this is Dolph Briscoe. And I said, yes, sir, Mr. Briscoe. And he said, I've checked you out, and I want you to come down and help me run for governor. And so he said, I'm going to fly up there and meet you. So he flew up, and my dad, who had been in the legislature really early in 1918, right after World War I, he was in the legislature. So he knew all about Austin. And Mr. Briscoe came up, met with my dad, met with me, and he said, I'm going to hire you to handle my campaign in Dallas County. And so anyway, I did that, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot that was not local government. It was basically, after it was all over, I was selected as his administrative assistant and went to Austin. And he assigned me handling the legislature, which was the 63rd session of the legislature. And the governor takes office 1 week after the legislature. And the legislature's in for 140 days, and you got 150 members of the legislature and 31 members of the Senate. And I was in charge of working with those people. And when we had the press conference down there at in the office of the governor, they asked me, did I have any experience? And I said, no, I've never been down here. My dad has, but I haven't ever been down here. And so they wrote me up in the paper as a guy that had no experience, and he's the pampered son of a small town mayor. That's what they said. So anyway, I took that job over, and I learned all I would learn and could learn about Texas government. And I'd also, it led me to get on the UIL Foundation board and make myself more involved. I never ran for office after that, except for University Park, but it taught me a lot about government and how the states run and how the cities are run, how the counties are run. And so anyway, I would say I got a little training before I was mayor. Well, the challenges to me, and I hate to get into it because it was an old fight. I did, under that same theory, it's an awesome ability to be able to tax 100% of people for what less than 100%. You have to make that decision, because there's a lot of times people think it's 100%, but it's not. And so when they came at me with the library, I said, look, I'm going to be the first to give you some money for the library, but I'm not going to use taxpayer money to put in the library. A lot of people criticized me for that, and a lot of women, and they wanted the kids. And so, but now we got our own independent library, and Janice and I gave them, every year we give them the money that we it's for what we think is what we should give them, and we're all involved. And I just think that that was one thing that I didn't like. There was another thing that I got cured. There was during my administration, our theater, the only theater we had, leased out to a group from San Francisco, and they had pornographic movies. And of course, the women just ate me up around, and so we had to try. Dick Wood was the attorney, and I just hated it because Dick was such a gentleman, and he and Mrs. Wood. But the thought of having people look at this thing and testify it was against the prurient interests, and that was either that or within so many feet of a school or a church. The courts had already decided that we were outside of the range. And so anyway, we tried that in federal court, and that was a massive thing that I just hated because I just couldn't stand, looking at all that stuff. And when we lost the election. The case. We lost the case. And boy, I came back and I called my friend that owned the theater, and I said, "I'm going to sick all these women on you if you re-up on that lease." And he agreed, and we took it down that way, But it was really one of the pivotal things when I was mayor had to do. Well, the highest achievement was pretty well following what my dad had done, and that is make sure you keep the taxes low and pay off all, city basically debts. We didn't have any outstanding debts when I got out, and I kind of kept that as my dad had lowering taxes, paying off all the indebtedness, having a big surplus in the bank, and I tried to follow that as best I could. Now, the state and everybody else got involved in it. What happened was, during that time, we went to a county appraisal district instead of us having our little appraisal department over here where Armstrong School was. I can remember we had our own appraisal department, so we'd appraise things. When I was there, the average home was $56,000 in University Park. Now it's $1.8 million. So you see what's happened. The taxes have all gone up, most of them because of school. Robin Hood, they've taken over $2 billion out of our community. And that all happened after I was there. But I saw it coming because when I was down there, Governor Briscoe was, all he wanted to be known for was right on red after full stop, and we didn't do anything that would cost the citizens anymore. We had a lot of fights with the speaker at that point, but anyway, gradually the city is being controlled more and more by what's going on in Austin. Not as much as the school district, but some limits they're putting on your taxing ability and so on. So what my greatest accomplishment was try to stay about what my dad did, which was, something that we all benefited from for 20 years. I would say this, the fact that we had, and I got involved in all that, but it was after I was mayor, was the presidential library. It was a good bit after it, but I was the one that handled the thing before the city. There were a lot of people that opposed it for the parking and what it might bring as far as people, from out of our area to the city, and maybe some people that didn't like what happened on 9/11 and on and on and on, or one of the wars. And I was able to help SMU in that decision. It was a decision that I think is a very, very big thing for the city of University Park to have a presidential library. They beautified that area of University Park. They tore down some some old apartments over there, and they planted kind of a native garden area where people can go over and walk around and enjoy it. It gives you the ability to have in your community something that is more than just community ideas. It's international ideas when you're at a presidential library. And I think the quality of the programs they have over there is something that very few communities will be able to enjoy, but we will. Well, I'm going to say this, and probably some people don't agree with me. The most important date in our community's history was April the 3rd, 1945, when we voted to stay out of Dallas. Probably the next important date was Dallas immediately. I'm talking about immediately. I think it was maybe 2 days later, like the Monday after the election. They encircled University, Highland Park, and Highland Park Independent School District. In other words, annexed all the land around us. That might be the second greatest thing that ever happened, because we are a city that is mature and not always like all of these communities out here north. Frisco, and surely I'm not criticizing Frisco, but they've got more schooling, more, land they got to develop. It just keeps going. We didn't have to do that. We'd already matured. So what we have is the finest police protection. Somebody broke into this house, policeman at the front and back door in 2.5 minutes. Caught him. My wife has a stroke. I'm over 911. They're trying to tell me what to do. Lay her out on the couch, and they said, "Mr. Coffey, can you open your front door?" My goodness, less than 3 minutes. They had her down at the hospital. You get a shot, when you have a stroke, and that's life or death, or certainly the damage that a stroke can do. I had property in the plaza that burned up. I remember I came back, I was in New Mexico, I came back and I checked how long it took the fire apparatus to get there. 4 minutes. Come on, you don't get those sort of services. Sewer, water, of course I think the water deal was out where we outmaneuvered Dallas, because my dad and Mr. Germany, the senior Mr. Germany, E.B., had already made approaches to a senator about water that they were going to use to navigate the Trinity, and that was what Lake Grapevine was. We had adjudicated the first 50,000 acre feet of water out of there. That kept us independent forever. And now some of it's been adjudicated down a little bit from the firm yield, but look, if we hadn't had an independent water district, Dallas would have had us. That's the way they do all that. But we are, in my judgment, the finest place, I said, anywhere in the world to live and raise a family. And it's just a community that's had great governance and great schools and great churches and a university and you got it all here. So that's about as good as you can have for a community. Janice and I have a home in Taos, New Mexico. Great place for us. My mother grew up there, and we've had this home for now 125 years. But I saw what happened to Taos because of COVID. Boy, it really knocked them where they don't have any employees working, but not many people can keep a restaurant open. There's just no coming back necessarily. Now, that's a total different situation out there. The politics in New Mexico is totally different here. But I see that we are going to be comfortable for a while, but the people that really know the history of University Park are fastly, passing into history. And a lot of people that come here, which I think they come for schools, they come for community, for governance and all that, but they come from someplace and they immediately know what they want, and they want to say it ought to be run that way, you know. So I think that it's great to keep what we're doing for the centennial, which is bringing back a lot of history and maybe commemorating the first 100 years to the point to where some people will get all of the ideas that we've had to make the city great. I just fear that somewhere down the line, they're gonna kind of what we saw in our other home in Taos. There's just lots of people not working and feeling like they're kind of, so especially here, I hope the school district, I hope the city, and I hope SMU and all of them, the churches all keep very vigilant and do a good job. And I think they do. But I hope that I can, look back and say 100 years from now, we'll celebrate another 100 years with the same quality of life, and this will be considered the best place to live and raise your family. That's what I want.